Hello, and welcome to the Design for Greatness podcast. Conversations with Candice to help you elevate your mind, body, and spirit and own your divine greatness. Today you have episode number 27, my interview with Teri Walthall. Friends, you're in for such a treat today. Seriously, I cannot wait for you to get to know Teri. As you will quickly find out, she is a powerhouse of love and authenticity. I met Teri Walthall on a speaker's cruise, actually, and we just connected immediately. We became fast friends, and we've stayed in contact. In fact, I met her for lunch just a couple of weeks ago when she was visiting Utah, and I love this woman. So let me give you a little bit about her bio. Teri Walthall is a professional astrologer, intuitive, and motivational speaker. Teri brings over 30 years of experience in the teaching field and 6 years as a personal coach, all rooted in a lifelong passion for understanding human behavior. For more than 4 decades, Teri searched for the perfect life, only to discover that real fulfillment comes not from perfection, but from presence, purpose, and deep self-acceptance. Okay, listen, I love that so much, by the way. Let me just say that again, because I think there's so much power in that one statement. For more than 4 decades, Teri searched for the perfect life, only to discover that real fulfillment comes not from perfection, but from presence, purpose, and deep self-acceptance. So good. We're going to get into that a little bit more. Today, Teri guides others using astrology as a tool for clarity, connection, and transformation. Her work is about helping people return to themselves, because when we understand our place in the larger story, we can begin to live with intention, compassion, and confidence. Okay, I am so grateful for this woman, and I'm delighted to share her with you. Teri is truly living into her greatness as she helps others live into authenticity. Teri, welcome to the Design for Greatness podcast, and I am so happy to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Candice. It's so great to be here also. I feel the same way.
Awesome. I'd like to just jump right into your story.
Sure.
You spoke in your bio of chasing the perfect life, and how that idea of perfection really wasn't even a thing or even fulfilling. Would you expound upon this and kind of the journey that led you to where you are right now?
Oh, such a big question, but absolutely, I'd love to. Astrologically, I am a Virgo. And so that's kind of an introductory. And if you're not sure what that means I do what I'm told very, very well. And I want to do it as well as ever can be told. And so I was raised in a home where that was valued and my obedience was valued. And so I tuned into obedience, and I was raised in a culture where that was also very highly praised and valued. So I did what everybody told me to very, very well. And sometimes I've learned to discover that what they're telling me may not be the best thing for me to do, what is new and different for me in this world, right? So at about the age of 45, which is about 10 years ago, not to give away trade secrets or anything, I was in my second marriage and having some of the same mental and emotional issues I had had for the previous times in my life, where I blamed it on the outside circumstances. So I was in an unhappy marriage for quite a while. The home life that I was raised in was pretty tough. There was competition abroad and not a lot of love, freely seen anyway. And so when then I was in my second marriage and thinking all of those problematic situations had been solved, and then understood that I still had the same sort of challenges in my mind and in my psyche, I thought, okay, there must be something deeper to this. And so that's when I leaned into a different kind of therapy. I've been going to therapy for a lot of years, but this time I went in, I learned about, is how I will say that, the trauma brain and the trauma response. And once I finally understood that my traumas were not me, but they were kind of running the game as though they were me, it opened my heart to be open to, okay, what then could really be me? And that's when I was introduced to a coach that believed in me and showed me what love could really be about. And she guided me to lean into my God and my higher self to really learn what love is about. And so that's kind of where that journey went. And of course, there's lots of details along the way, but that's the nuts and bolts of that.
I love that. I think something that you said was really profound. I think, especially in the culture that I grew up in, and I know our cultures are the same, there is a strict focus on obedience, and you do what I say and you show up how I tell you to do. And if you do that, then you'll be great. And we end up in this toxic perfectionism where we truly have to be perfect and we have to be this outward expression of what our parents think is ideal. And if we don't, then we're bad, we're wrong, we're not worthy. And that is a really scary, tricky, awful place to be. And I love that you were able to have the self-awareness to look at your life and say, interesting, these same things are happening. The common denominator is me. So I'm not a victim. I need to take ownership for this. And how can I shift?
That is huge, right? That is huge. Getting out of victim, even sometimes victimhood to God. We need to be careful of that sometimes too, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So when you figured out your, oh, I want to say devotion to obedience,
Mhm.
what was the thing that woke you up to recognize that maybe the parents' ideal, who they were trying to mold you into, wasn't maybe the ideal for you?
Well, my coach pointed out to me that singing is a gift that I was given for me.
Beautiful.
And I was raised being told that my gifts and talents were to share with other people, to create a space out here that people could feel my benefit, they would benefit them.
Yes.
That was an awareness that I could benefit me. Like my gifts are for me, right? And so that understanding probably was the first sort of chink, like, okay, true that my gifts are beneficial, not true that they have to be beneficial outside of me.
Yeah.
Piece of truth, piece of not truth. So that started my filtering of like, okay, what other things have I accepted as true that are somewhat true and also have some things that could be, shifted according to my dictates of my conscience?
I love that. There's a quote from Thomas Jefferson that says, happiness is all about the internal journey to know ourselves and the external journey in service to others. And I
Yes.
believe our gifts are given to know ourselves. And like you're saying, that the singing, it helps you connect to you, but also it does serve others too. And our gifts are meant to be both. Um,
Yes.
Knowing ourselves and then serving others, both
Yes.
those internal and external journeys. And yeah,
I had those flipped. I had serving others, and then maybe there'd be time left over for me.
right.
That's
Well,
how I would switch.
and what I've found is learning to love ourselves is critical before we can truly love others. Will you tell me about the journey that helped you learn to love yourself?
Oh, still on that one.
I think we all are.
Aren't we? Yeah. I mean, it starts with the scripture. Jesus's new commandment is to love yourself or love others as you love yourself. And he kind of tosses that in there, but I think it's an important caveat. Like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
not an afterthought.
it's not an afterthought.
It's
It's
a
a detail.
qualifying statement and
There you
telling you,
go.
yes.
Yes. And so that same coach, just in one of our sessions, said, I don't think you feel loved. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I can tell you're loving, others feel loved by you, but I don't think it's getting into you all the way. And that was the first realization that, oh, it could feel different than this sort of surfacey, dependent on what I'm doing relationship I had with love. And so I took it into my heart and I prayed to my God and I got some validation that indeed it could be more personal and more individual for me. And that was a while. That was, 6 or 7 years ago. And it's just been an ongoing sort of journey since then.
Yes.
The reason I love astrology so much is that I have been taking personality tests my whole life, trying to figure out why I am the way I am, and having all the people around me take it too. I want to know why you are the way you are, and
Yeah, the internal journey to know yourself.
there you go, right? But astrology, you can't kind of cheat that. In fact, I can take the Myers-Briggs. I accept the challenge of taking the Myers-Briggs right now. And if you tell me you want me to test as a director or an executor, I can take the test like that because I've taken it so much. I know what the questions will end up to be, right? And so astrology, you just can't really cheat that, right? It is what it is. It's information from God to us when we look at it that way that can help us to understand better who we are and why we're here. And sort of this self-acceptance that I'm different than everybody else is intentional and on purpose,
I love that.
much less allowed, right? So, yeah.
Well, and from what I've seen is until we feel the love of God for us, it's really tricky to love ourselves. And so tapping into the love of God for us allows us to then love ourselves, which then in turn is the impetus to love other people. And it's
Correct.
this beautiful flow of love that's amazing. And so I love that you were able to take that to God in prayer and feel that in your heart and let that just permeate your being. And
Yes. In that vein, I had to learn what prayer for me was, right? I had to
yeah,
go
speak
back
to that a
all
little
the
bit.
way down to the basis of, okay, here's what they have said it should be, should be. What is it for me? How is that the same? Again, what is true and what can I shift in my world, right? And so I did have to overcome some belief systems and some programming telling me what was allowed and what was not allowed in prayer, in my personal prayer, right? And part of that was I started singing my prayers once I understood that that's
Beautiful.
my connection, right? And so, and a lot of different shifting that way. I gave myself permission to figure out what that meant for me.
I love
And
that.
it was really helpful.
Well, and I know in my own journey, I love the definition of meditation as a higher form of prayer. And I was never taught meditation in my youth. It's only something that I've come across in my adulthood. And it is, to me, such a higher form of prayer, such an easier way to connect than just, you know,
Yes.
the cookie cutter checkbox of a prayer.
Yes.
So, and I love
Yeah.
that you sing your prayers. Is there anything else that you've found that connects you really powerfully to God? And
I mean, yeah, there's a couple things, but what you said, I wanted to speak to, we weren't taught to meditate, but we were taught to ponder, right? So the truths are there, right? And so it's not denigrating any somebody that
oh yeah,
didn't,
no,
what I mean, and I know you feel the same way. That's why I can speak to that, right?
yes, yes,
There is this ability to ponder, meditate, quiet space, right? Quiet space, receiving. Um, Setting time aside and being willing to let that time be as long, as much or as little as is needed on any different given day, right? Schedules sometimes get in the way. The needs of the day kind of get in the way. And I have the benefit of having all my children grown and out of my home. So I have a little space in my head in the mornings. I don't have any demands, the same kinds of demands as I did when my children were present. Um, but that I would say, prioritize. Prioritizing is a major key for me. And that's putting me first as well as putting God first, right? Me and God first, and then
yes.
whatever else happens. And then allowing each morning the routine to shift. The routine is there, and which components of it I didn't have to, I don't have to do A, B, and C every morning.
I
But
love
I did
that.
figure out, right, if I feel like singing and I feel God's love in my body where I know I do, then that's when I'm ready to face my day.
I love that. I think there's so much power in that because we tend to want a framework or a specific way to do things. And as a human, I think we want to just be able to check, I did this, I did this, I did this, okay, I'm good. And
Right?
it's not how things work. We have to be able to go with the flow. And sometimes it can take 2 seconds and sometimes it takes 2 hours. But
Right?
but being able to flow with whatever is needed and knowing, maybe I haven't read my scriptures for 4 days. That doesn't mean I can't still be connected. And
Right.
there's so many shoulds in
Yeah.
in society. I just like stop shooting on yourself.
Right? Yes.
Yes,
And
just
get your checklist. Get absolutely listen to who you admire and get that checklist, but then take that checklist to God and you and God figure out what stays on the checklist, right?
and different for different days. That's
Yes.
so
Yes.
powerful because sometimes we need to just be, and sometimes we need to do. And there's the yin and the yang, and the give and the receive, and the flow. And yes, thank you
Yeah.
for speaking to that. I love
Yes.
that. So, Terry, what would you say is your why? Like, why do you wake up in the morning? Why do you do what you do? And what do you feel your mission is?
Oh, how much time do you have? I mean, it's interesting as I was thinking about that as you gave me that question to ponder previously, because my why has shifted over the years, of course, right? I think that is a healthy thing that the whys shift. It used to be, and what started this, I'm gonna be healthier, is that I didn't used to want to live, honestly. And living felt too big and too hard.
Yeah.
And then something happened in our family that helped me understand that's kind of a family belief system that's going on. And I saw my children struggling and I saw my grandchildren being born. And I was like, nah, it's got to stop. Those little babies. I know I'm not in control of their lives and their destinies. However, if I can help clear away this family thing, that life is so hard and has to be hard, I'm going to do everything in my power to clear away that family belief. And so that's a big why for me, those babies and their parents and how much I care about them. And then in the last couple of years, it's become a game for me. About 2 years ago, when I was really sort of opening up to this work and figuring out I wanted to be an astrologist and add that to my coaching, I started getting clients and my days started getting really busy and there were some demands. And one day I said out loud, I sure hope I have the energy to fulfill the demands that are, and my tongue stopped and it's like somebody knocked me on the head and they gently sort of said, how about delights of your day? And I was like, oh, can I have the energy to fulfill the delights of my day? And then I just sort of understood, am I looking at them as demands or delights? I said I wanted these things to happen. I said I was ready for it, but I was perceiving them as demands instead of delights. Thank you, right? Interesting. So
Yes, I love
that's
that.
a shift, right? And so now I'm accepting the challenge every day. What delight is ahead of me today? And that is helpful in getting me out of bed.
There's a quote once, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it was something like a mother's prayer. God, give me the strength to enjoy all of my greatest blessings today.
There you go. Right? Yes.
Right. But what a shift in from a demand to a delight. What a shift. And that little tiny word shift,
Yeah.
it changes the energy of the whole entire way you show up. And I think generational patterns are a big thing that we all have and that we all deal with. And if we can clear those for our posterity, if we can break those chains so that they no longer get passed on, and when it comes to like suicidal ideation, and really feeling like I have nothing to live for and I don't want to live, that is that is not something to like, that is a huge thing. We need to fix that. And I love that that has become part of your why. And I love that that has become part of your mission, for your family. And also it ripples into everything as you show up. And I don't think you're alone. As I've spoken with so many people, a lot of times we get to that place where we're ready to call it quits. And that dark night of the soul is what wakes us up.
Right? Yeah.
There's a statistic that I think is so interesting, and it's multiple studies show the same thing, that 75% of Americans feel that they have no purpose. And to me, that's so sad, because that having a purpose is what makes you want to live. That's what allows you a meaningful life, is you're fulfilling a purpose. We need contribution, connection, and growth, and that's part of who we are. Can you speak to how you help people find their purpose and what that looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Instead of yeah. Yes. For me, again, back to astrology, back to who I actually am versus who anybody else thinks I am. I think that people who are struggling with purpose may be trying to fit other people's versions of what they should be into their purpose, and truly dropping away from, turns out I am good at obedience and I don't have to use it all the time. I don't have to let it run my life. I'm good at a lot of things. I'm great at cleaning a toilet. I don't do that all day, every day. I do that when it's necessary and then I'm done doing that.
Right.
So knowing that that is something I'm good at doesn't mean it's my zone of excellence or where I want to spend my time. Right.
Right.
So acknowledging the different gifts that were in front of me were helpful to me. My my astrological chart told me my voice will transform. So again, kind of back to the singing. I don't mean to be repetitive about that, but that really is a gift. And
Love it.
I have had this situation for most of my life that I'll be talking, I'll be saying just something in a regular voice, and all of a sudden the whole room will sort of look to see who's saying that thing. And before, it's been embarrassing, like, oh, I should have been quieter, or, there's been some shame involved in that moment. And seeing it in my chart in the way that there is transformation happening, whether it's mine or theirs or theirs or theirs. I don't know. You don't know. I can't know all of that. I can trust that when I'm connected, there's positive transformation going on around me because of the validation that I received in that chart.
I love that.
So that is astrological chart, right? So the purpose thing is kind of an interesting thing, right? Because I spun for a while doing nothing, looking for the purpose of my life. And so honestly, Candice, I'm doing really good if I get a purpose of my day in my world right now.
Mm-hmm.
So my purpose is every day to find the delight.
I love
And if more than that happens, then, cool.
Right. But I think what you spoke to is really profound. Just that a lot of times people tell us who we are and how we're supposed to be, and we're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, and it's not going. And then we feel like, well, we're messed up. And we've messed up somehow, or I'm messed up. I call it the messed up mentality. And then we think, well, then we must be messing up our purpose, and we have no purpose. And so being able to have that astrology chart to look to, and I think that that's so interesting, how the stars were at the day of your birth determines so many of your gifts and talents and strengths. And that is a beautiful thing, to then look to the stars and look to God and say, what is the hole I'm supposed to fit into? What is my peg? Am I a circle,
Right?
square, a star? And
Yeah.
I love that is able to give us such God-given direction. If people don't understand about the stars and about God's making of the stars on our day of birth, can you speak to a little bit of that, and how that does connect us to the divinity within us?
Yeah. I love that you said it determines, the moment determines our gifts. And can I just correct that to define?
Please, yes.
Doesn't determine. We have agency. You can have the same. In fact, I was gifted twins. I don't have twins, but there was a twin in my home early on when I was learning astrology. And she was like, me and my brother are twins, but he is so different than me. You cannot explain that in astrology. That can't be possible. I'm like, well, let's look. And it just so happened that you can explain it. They were born right on the cusp between one astrological sign and the other, Virgo and Leo, and those two signs are very different from each other. And so he leaned into his Leo gifts and she leaned into her Virgo gifts, excuse me. So there's still totally agency and complete choice in the matter. Yes?
Yes.
It just makes sense to me that we are natural beings in a positive way, in that the earth is a natural earth, the sky is a natural, means God made it sometimes. Yes. And so therefore, if he was that thoughtful in putting us together, which we easily believe, then how does it make any sense that he then just said, okay, stars, do whatever you want, and plants, do whatever you want? It just doesn't make sense to my head. So this is we have through the years been told that it is sort of taking power out of God's hands, and maybe interpretation, right? Maybe there's some challenge with that. I don't do predictive astrology, although I'm not saying that anybody who does is not, of the light, possibly, I don't know. But what I believe it is good for is understanding more about me and what's possible for me, and where's my zone of excellence as opposed to what I can be good at.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that for everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, I have just a couple more questions for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
With me, I talk about the mind, body, spirit, and how that trifecta, those three things that make us a human, they first need to be in alignment, and then we're able to step into that place of love for God, love for ourselves, love for others, and then we can step into who we really are. So I would like to speak for a second to our mind. The mind is the battlefield. That's where we have to take ownership for our thoughts. And I just would love you to speak to your mind and how you've learned to align your thoughts.
The intelligent discrimination of my thoughts.
I love that.
That came to me in a book about 6 months ago, and I'm like, that's beautiful. That's exactly intelligent discrimination. I get to choose. I
Yes.
think the ego gets a bad rap sometimes. So I'll back up. About 10 years ago was the first time I heard of sort of mind, body, spirit. My whole life growing up, I had heard body, spirit, a glove, the glove analogy, right? The glove is the spirit and this is the body and they will separate. I heard of two. I never heard of three. So then when three was introduced to my understanding, I was like, oh, mind. Mind is its own animal. And some people label that ego and say, pleh. I'm saying we need that mind to calculate our grocery list, to show us how to build houses. We need the intelligent part of the mind. Yes. The ego part just can't drive, right? I should not use the same part of my mind that I need to formulate mathematics to tell me if I'm lovable. Those two things are not in the same part of my mind, right? So just understanding that. Yes.
Yeah, I teach it the higher brain versus the lower brain. And we
Yeah,
want the higher brain driving. The
we
lower
do.
brain is a powerhouse for habits and keeping things flowing, but we need to operate from our higher brain or else we end up sabotaging.
Well, so for me, understanding the lower brain's trying to keep you alive. It's
Yeah.
not interested in progression at all. It wants you to stay alive. And if that's enough for you, then cool. That's enough. I don't want to judge anybody who wants to hang out there, but that's what it's for. It's to keep us alive here on the earth. And if we want to progress, we got to shift into that higher brain. I wanted to thank you. The name of my business is Unity Healings, and I got that name about 5 years ago in a moment of inspiration, and I love that because I have always known unified is better than individual. Yes. But I have to admit that was before I understood the strength of individual. So I was giving too much to unified, right? And then you spoke at the Rejuvenate You conference, and that was the first time I had heard your trifecta of body, mind, spirit. And it just, because I was thinking about changing the name of my business actually, right about that time period, because that's to everybody else and I don't get to. And then I realized when my body, mind, and spirit are unified, that is also necessary, right? So
100%.
it's unification on these different levels that I still am such a strong, in strong support of.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And I love intelligent discrimination of thoughts. It's beautiful. That's exactly what we have to do. We have to, you know, reject the lies, claim the truth, take ownership for what we choose to think and believe. And that is so powerful. Thank you. Okay, so let's speak to the body piece. How do you use, you told me you feel God in your body. Speak more to that and how your body is your antenna that allows you to receive inspiration and intuition and how do you love your body? Just speak to your body for a second.
I will do that. Thank you for that opportunity. Again, back to astrology, there's an astrological system called human design, which I would love to talk to anybody about because I could talk about it forever. But I learned in human design that my touch is my superpower. I learn through my physical body. And so therefore, all the times I had shushed the natural man who I've been told in my upbringing was an enemy to God, because the urges that, there's a place where that's true, like leaning into those physical urges as opposed to up, what I'm saying? Truth,
Exactly.
line, both. So I had shut down natural man. I had shut it down completely. And I only felt confident when I was covered head to toe. And then I understood that what's going on inside the body matters as much as how the outside looks and is responding to other people around me. Yes. And so I started to learn about the emotions, and that's where trauma brain kicked in. Like, what's trauma and what's my actual emotions, and learning to understand that. When I was tasked to learn where God's love happens for me in my body, I was like, well, that's easy. When I'm listening to spiritual music, I get tingles down my arm. Or when I'm in testimony meeting, my heart and my bosom swell and I feel that feeling in there. But then I was like, but is that personal or is that collective, right? I had to figure that out for myself. And so in my prayer moments and in my prayer journey is when I felt I asked my God, where do I feel my messages from you, as opposed to from the collective, which are also beautiful feelings to have. And in a few weeks' time, I was led to a scripture that gave me information that allowed a feeling to happen in my specific body. And I never say where, because we
Sure.
kind of tend to copy those we admire, right? Or whatever, or we want to learn from, whatever. But for me, that's in a different place in my body than when the tingling is happening and when the bosom burning is happening. And those are beautiful feelings, and I still love those feelings. Those are not specific to me. Mine is in a different place. And so I challenge everybody, where do you feel God's love in your body? Somebody at church at one time was challenging a decision that we were trying to make. And the one somebody in the presidency is like, it just hurts my stomach to think of that decision. And across my mind was like, oh, is that where you get inspiration when your stomach's hurting? Is that your inspired feeling? And she was like, a weird question, but she thought about it some more. She's like, no, that's not my inspired feeling. That's fear talking, right? And so I won't tell you which way we went on the decision because that doesn't matter to the story, but it just helped me be aware that what feelings are happening and what are you telling yourself they mean? And is that what they actually mean?
Yes.
How you feel in your body matters. We are told our body is a temple, and I go to the temple to learn and to gain instruction. I don't go there to keep it pretty. So I don't keep this temple pretty as much as I use it for learning and gaining instruction and communicating with my God. And if that translates to that I'm happier and more pleasant, then great. Sometimes it doesn't.
Well, and I truly believe you have to love your body in order for your body to give you those messages that it can give you. If you're despising your body and you hate your body and you don't like how it looks and you're mad at your body and you feel like your body's broken, you're not able to receive in your body those messages that are so important. So truly learning to love and appreciate that, and then really asking, okay, where, being present in our body, fully in our body to receive
It's
it.
just like any relationship, right? Any relationship where you go around telling it it's dumb and you want different things from it would not, right? It's a relationship.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, I love that. Well, and we've
One of the things that I've had to do, I've been given the gift of doing is love songs. I sing love songs to myself. And sometimes I do it while I'm looking in the mirror. And every time I feel like a warm, yummy, oh, I want to get this feeling from my husband or from my kids, I think, oh, or could that song apply to God? From me to God, from God to me, from me to me. Like those love songs can go all kinds of ways. We assign the meaning, right?
100%, 100%. And that mirror talk is so powerful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Well, we've talked a bit about how to stay spiritually connected. And I loved what you said about, not having to do it the same way every time, but just really tuning into God and what do I need today to be spiritually centered. Is there anything on your heart that you would like to share concerning the spirit that we haven't spoken to yet, just to stay spiritually connected?
Um, Einstein said the biggest, I'm going to mess up the quote now because I'm thinking about it too hard, but the biggest challenge any of us face in our lifetime is to decide whether we live in a friendly or a hostile universe. And that very much applies to spirituality. If I approach my God expecting him to condemn me, expecting them to tell me what's wrong with me, to tell me what needs fixed about me, I will receive a very different download than if I approach my God thanking him for the gifts I have and expecting the love and the upleveling that I can get from those connections. When I give my brain the job of showing me what's wrong with me, my brain will do that job beautifully. Or what's wrong with the world, or what's wrong, like that. It's kind of tricky that we don't know that our brains get in the way of our spirituality, but they do.
They do. That which you focus on expands. It's a natural law. It's a divine truth.
So for me, understanding that I was giving God the task of showing me what was wrong so I could fix it, when that shifted into showing me what's good and happy and light-filled, so then I can be a light in the world, that's a totally different experience.
100%. And one thing that I have learned so powerfully is the adversary speaks to us in shoulds. and in not enoughness and what's wrong. And God speaks to us in invitations and in offerings and in its possibles. And to me, that's kind of what you're speaking to there. And I love that.
I very rarely get stop doing that from God. In fact, almost never, right? If it's something
Right.
that's going to hurt me, occasionally I have, but almost never. Stop
Yeah.
doing that. Why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? Those are not from God. Those are not messages from God.
No. Again, that intelligent discrimination of thoughts. It's
There
so
you go.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. The mind is the battlefield, the heart is the prize. And when we live with thoughts that open our heart and connect us to God, ourselves, and others, it's beautiful. It's
It
awesome.
can be beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, will you offer a free 30-minute astrology introduction? Tell us a little bit about that, and if anyone would like to work with you, how they get a hold of you, Teri.
Very good. Thank you for that. Again, astrology changed my world. So, people who are not, I have found that people who don't understand astrology think that they are only where the sun was the moment they were born. Where the sun was in the sky is your astrological sign. So because the sun on September 4th was in Virgo, that makes me a Virgo. And I think most people know that about themselves. What they don't
I
understand,
know
or
that much. I'm Taurus.
oh, Taurus,
That's
okay,
about
good.
it. Yes.
Yeah. But if I look at your beautiful, not stubborn self, I see that there must be something else there. So where the moon was, where all the planets were, where the asteroids were, also matter. So when I learned that I am double Virgo, my moon, my sun, and my ascendant or rising is one of the big three, and then the moon, where the moon was, that's your big three that people will refer to in astrology. I have double Virgo placement, but I also have Libra. And the Libra is the balancing and the fair police of the chart. And that just was like, oh, that's why when we were little, my mom would hand me the knife to cut the birthday cake because she knew I would get those slices exactly the right shape and size so that everyone would have just the right size of cake because I had some Libra in my chart, right? And so that was just understanding that there's more than just that, your sun. So what I would like to offer to help people understand is to teach them about their big three, their sun, their moon, and their ascendant. And there's a whole bunch more, but the other one that was so impactful for me was the Chiron, where your Chiron, that's spelled Chiron, where your Chiron placement is, can tell you about your wounding, your challenge that you brought with you to this earth, as opposed to happen to you because you are somehow less than or deserving of this negative behavior. So I was walking around from the time I was little, not knowing where my place was, not feeling belonging, not feeling acceptance. And then I went to a retreat and learned about astrology and also learned about acceptance in a group of people with similar light-filled objectives in life and mindsets, right? And so I felt a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt before, partially because I understood the feelings of not belonging were not because I didn't actually belong, and they were not because I was doing anything wrong, nor was anybody else doing anything wrong. There was a mirror being held up for me to show me that I needed to clear this. And I just love that before that, I had been hostessing retreats. And since then, I've hostessed retreats and created spaces where people could feel belonging, because that's the flip side of that wound. That was my wounding. And when I figured out that that was, why and whatever, now I can help to create places where people actually belong, because that's the gift in that, right? So seeing why that wounding was there and how it could benefit others was a beautiful understanding for me. So I would love to offer a 30-minute understanding like that to anybody who wants to take advantage of that. The place you can reach me is my name, teri.walthall@gmail.com. You can just reach out to me directly through email. I also have a Stan store account. So STAN, some guy named Stan is offering his website as a host platform. So I have a Stan store /Teri Walthall, and I hope the link will be down below.
We'll post it'll be in the notes. Absolutely.
That's where you can schedule, just, reach out there and schedule your 30-minute appointment. And I'll teach you a little bit about astrology and then your specific sun, moon, ascendant, and a little bit about your Chiron.
I love it. I love it. Teri, it is so beautiful to think about living authentically, to utilize the tools that God gave us with the astrology. I don't understand well, but I'm excited to do my own 30 minutes with you. But to truly understand that and let that help us live authentically. Authenticity is one of the highest vibrations. And when we live authentically, we truly live into our greatness and are able to use that greatness to serve this world. And that's what it's all about.
Isn't that amazing that we've recently understood that authenticity is up there with love and gratitude as far as high vibration? Like, it really, truly scientifically shown.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and it's because, are you loving authentically? Are you gratitude authentically?
Right.
It can't just be lip service. It has that authenticity is what allows that high vibration.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, so we'll wrap up here. Is there anything left on your heart that you want to leave us with before we close?
I think we've covered it beautifully. Thank you so much for this platform to be able to share what is on my heart. I appreciate it so much.
Yes, well, we just are so grateful that you have inspired all of us, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Candice.
Thank you for joining me today. Wow, what a gift to be enlightened and inspired by Teri Walthall, my beautiful cruise bestie. Teri is such a powerful example of choosing to own her divine greatness and then use that greatness to serve this world in wonderful ways. I love how Teri learned to determine who she is, not by her parents' standards and ideals, and not by obedience to their mandates or to cultural norms, but she found who she was by looking to God. I love how she figured out how to pray in her own ways, in ways that truly allowed genuine connection. I love that. I think it's so crucial to realize that Teri learned how to determine who this divine love, that she was able to then figure out where God's love was in her body and how this opened her up to so much more light and truth. Teri gained powerful insights into her divine identity by using the tool of astrology to validate her gifts, strengths, and talents, as well as her woundings and trials. It's so neat that this was able to shift everything for her, the astrology. And I'm excited to examine my own astrology chart with Teri. I'm thrilled she's offering this to all of my listeners. May we all live more authentically into our greatness and use that greatness to live an impactful, meaningful life of fulfillment. Friends, if you enjoy this podcast, please do me a favor and subscribe to it. Take 2 minutes and just rate and review it if you would. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the little subscribe button so that you can subscribe to my channel. All of these things will really help others to find me and allow this podcast to grow. And if there's something in this podcast that touched your heart today, please share it with a friend. Truly, together we rise. I am passionate about helping others realize that they truly are designed for greatness, that they have this incredible divinity within themselves. I hope this podcast inspires you to own your divine greatness and then use that greatness to help others to step up and serve this world in ways that are completely unique to you and the greatness inside of you. It all starts with mind, body, spirit alignment and love. Love for God, love for yourself, and love for others. So if you're ready to take that first step, which requires that you become the boss of your brain, sign up for my free mini course, 5 Days of Focus. The link is in the show notes along with the link for Teri Walthall. As always, remember, in whatever place or circumstance you find yourself in, believe in your belovedness, own your divine greatness. Use that greatness to fulfill your missions and live an impactful, meaningful life of fulfillment. You are designed for greatness. Own it.